name's Abe Woldeslassie. I'm the head men's basketball coach at Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota, and just finished my second year here and going on year 3, and graduated from Macalester in 2008. So graduated from high school in 2004, and I knew that I wanted to get into the best school I could get into. I wanted to be in a city, so I looked at schools that were closer to home. I grew up in Minneapolis, and so I applied to a few schools in our conference, the MIAC, Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and ultimately decided on going to St. Thomas. So I went to St. Thomas for 2 years and played JV on the men's basketball program there, and then transferred my junior and senior year, was at Macalester College, actually right on the street. So Summit Avenue connects both universities, and so I just went about a mile down. So had a great experience here, played for a really good coach in Kurt Keetzer, and who was actually my player of the year when he played in college, and was, for me, again, Macalester was the best school I could get into, which I was really proud of getting in. It was really important for my family to be able to see me play, and it was a chance. I knew that I wanted to coach in college, and I felt that I wanted to have as good of a playing career as I could, so then it would give me some opportunities once I graduated. So, graduated in 2008. It's been a lot of fun. I think there were, over time, right, as we all get older, sometimes we lose these links and these connections. And so I felt that I was graduating in 2008, which is now 12 years ago. I was a bridge between maybe the older guard of guys who maybe felt a little removed, and then also some of the newer players who are just kind of like yourself, are just starting their careers and are, maybe that chapter of basketball is closed. And for some guys, they stay more connected, some don't. And so now being a head coach, my job is to be the bridge and to bring guys back and to keep guys connected. So my first year, we had 2 alumni games, which was great. This past year we had 1 because and I asked the alums what they thought, and they felt it'd be better just to have 1, so more guys would show up to that, even though I guess in my eyes I wanted to have 2, so it gave guys options. But that's been fun. We have a monthly newsletter which we've created, so just to keep alums updated on what's going on. We do have at Macalester, we have students from all 50 states. Last year we had students from 98 countries. So the good of that is no matter where you go, you're not far from a Macalester grad. The challenging part is, unlike other schools in our conference that are mostly Minnesota based, we're not. And so you really have to plan, because people have to fly in and get hotels and things like that. And which makes it a little challenging, but I think it's more of a strength than a weakness that we do have really great diversity and people from all over the world. So it's been fun, and a lot of my buddies now that I played with are married, they're having kids, so they're bringing kids to games and things like that. So it's a pretty neat thing. Like every kid growing up, right, you're 5th, 6th grade, everyone's dream is to play in the NBA, right? We're all going to play in the NBA at that age. Probably around high school, I realized that probably wasn't realistic, and I thought, well, what's the next best thing? And I've always loved the game. I've always loved teaching the game and being around it. And so I felt like, if I can make coaching a career, and I didn't know if that was going to be teaching in high school and coaching in high school or coaching in college, but I knew that I wanted to stay involved at some level. So, and I felt that, and there are so many different ways to go about it, but I felt like playing in college would give me a great opportunity to do that after college. So I graduated on a Saturday. On a Tuesday, I moved to Las Vegas. I worked at Impact Basketball, where we train high school players all the way up through NBA guys. And so I moved out to Vegas on a Tuesday. I started working on a Wednesday. So I always tell our guys who graduate, don't start working 3 days after you graduate from college. Like, take some time, go travel, go to Africa, go to Europe, go to Asia, do something, South America, because you're going to have the rest of your life to work. But I was really excited. I wanted to get going. I had a really good opportunity out there. So, I was out there for 2 years working with, again, high school players all the way up through NBA guys and international pros. And then knew I wanted to get into college, and then started my college coaching career in 2010 at Bowdoin College. So. Went out to Bowdoin in 2010 Coach Gilbride, who's still the head coach there, took a big chance on me. Again, I was a prep school assistant, and he didn't really know me, but I think I had a pretty good interview, and he ended up hiring me. And it was just an amazing opportunity for me to be at Bowdoin. Made so many connections out there, and again, you're talking about Will Hanley. So I did not recruit Will, but I coached him his junior and senior year, and just from my time in Vegas at Impact, working with NBA players and international pros and really high-level college guys, I thought, well, I don't know if Will's an NBA player, but I thought, man, at some level, I know he can play overseas. And so I just, he asked me to reach out to a few different agents just across the country and across the world. And so this is back in 2012. So, I put together a YouTube highlight and just sent the link out, and I said, hey, we'll see what he can get. And so I told Will, I said, hey, if you make the ACB, which is the top level in Spain, if you make it, I'm going to come over and see you play. And I thought he had a good chance. I didn't think it would happen in year 2 or year 3, but it did. So I fly over to Spain. I had never been over there, and fly to Madrid, take the bus up north about 4 hours, and we're in this 15,000 seat arena, northern Spain on the Bay of Biscay, beautiful area, really close to France. And I'm sitting here watching Will play against Kristaps Porzingis, who at the time had not been drafted, and then Willy Hernangomez, both obviously in the NBA now. And it was just amazing to see that and be in that environment, and to see Will. We can go look at the box scores, but I'm pretty sure Will outscored and out-rebounded Kristaps that night. They won. Kristaps' team won, but it was really amazing. And I think speaks to Will and how hard he worked and how much he believed in himself, his agent for putting him in the right situation, and it speaks mostly to how high level Division III players can be. And I think that's something that people on the outside maybe don't understand, is the amount of talent at the Division III level. Working for Coach Gilbride and making that decision to go to Bowdoin, when I look back now, that was in 2010, so now we're in 2020. So 10 years looking back, that was the best decision I could have made, to work for a head coach who's been there now. I think he's on year 36, maybe 37. He gave, again, like you said, you're not paid a whole lot, but at that point, it's not about that. It's getting experience. It's working for a great head coach. Bowdoin's a tremendous academic school, and I feel like for my career, you have to know what you want. And I knew that I wanted to align myself with great people, to work at great schools, and I would go anywhere in the country to do that. And being at Bowdoin, especially in the NESCAC, as you know, is one of the best. A lot of Division III leagues will argue they're the best, but I think you can make a strong argument that NESCAC, if they're not the best, they're a top 3 league in the country, and really great schools. In the Northeast, you have not just the NESCAC, but you have the NEPSAC, which is the prep school league. And so I was able to make a lot of connections with prep school coaches. I was able to go to a lot of Division I practices, because in the NESCAC, we didn't start practice till November 1st. So we had this gap in October where we couldn't really work with our guys. And so I was able to go to Harvard practice and New Hampshire and Yale, and I was able to work Princeton's camp and Columbia's camp and things like that. So just to be able to make those connections from my time at Bowdoin was amazing. And again, being a Division III assistant, you have to do a lot. So it's not just recruiting, it's the film, it's the scouting, it's ordering jerseys, it's alumni game, it's getting to know admissions and financial aid, and you're driving the van sometimes. Some of it, we had the conference games, but sometimes we had these non-conference games that were close. So I'm like driving the van, I'm on the phone, like ordering the pizza, like looking in the back, like, hey, do you want pepperoni or sausage, right? Like you're just, all those little details that, maybe seem insignificant add up. So you just have to do everything, but it's a great way to learn. And looking back now, being a head coach, a lot of those lessons I learned at Bowdoin are helping me today. I would say you have to learn from everybody, and you have to pick up nuggets. At the end of the day, you have to be your own man, or your own woman. But so I was at Dartmouth for a year, and I worked for, again, I think another really good coach in Paul Cormier, who had coached at Dartmouth previously, coached at Fairfield. He was in the NBA for maybe 15 years. And again, being in the Ivy League, getting a chance to be at a Division I institution, getting a chance to play in a really competitive conference. And Coach Cormier applied some of the NBA principles, both in practice and how we traveled and how we watched film. We probably watched more film at Dartmouth than any other program I was at. And just the way to approach being a professional, Coach Cormier was tremendous. Going to Davidson, I was there for 3 years as the director of ops. And I think an overall program, if you want to build a program, the blueprint is Davidson in so many ways. And you look at a lot of his coaching tree and where coaches have gone on, obviously Landry at Swarthmore and Jason Zimmerman at Emory and Ryan Mee at Vassar and Tim Sweeney at Conn College, myself now at Macalester and Duger Balcom at Citadel. And I know I'm forgetting a bunch of high school coaches, but I'm just looking at his college coaching tree currently. For a coach to have been at one institution for so long, again, another high academic school, it was a neat opportunity for me getting a chance to coach our last year in the Southern Conference and then first 2 years in the A-10, and how we were able to recruit maybe a different level of player, but coach stuck to his principles of the type of people he wanted, the type of players. He never veered from that, but at the same time was willing to adjust certain things of how we defended and even our recruiting footprint of where we went. I don't know if I could have learned from a better coach overall, holistically, than Coach McKillop, and was there for 3 years. So in 2018, there was an opening here to be the head coach at Macalester, and so actually a friend of mine had reached out to me, one of my teammates, and said, "Hey, the job's going to be open. Are you interested?" And at the time, I was still living in New York. I was still at Siena, and I'd spent 6 years at Division I level, and so I wasn't sure what to do, to be very honest, because it was home, and I felt like you'd spent so much time building a career, and you don't know where that's going to go, and so I did a lot of thinking and talked to a lot of people and talked to a few alums and everything, and I said, I felt like at that point I was ready to be a head coach. And I felt that, I grew up here, and when you're on this coaching journey, again, you never know where it's going to take you. And from 2008 to 2018, I had lived in 7 states. So 7 states in 10 years. That's a lot of moving. That's a lot of starting over. And I wouldn't trade it for anything because, again, I learned along the way, and I'm happy I did that. But I felt like now it was a chance to come home, it was a chance to be a head coach, and it was Macalester, right? It was my alma mater. So I applied for the job, and I had a bunch of the alums guys I played with, and even some that I didn't, and said, "Hey, can you reach out to the athletic director?" And so I came here, interviewed on campus, and got the you do the tour and everything. And the campus had changed a little bit, new athletic facility, new offices, and things like that. But after the interview, I knew for sure it was a chance to really build a program and to make it my own. And it's hard to get a head coaching job. I don't care if it's Division I, Division II, Division III. It's really, really competitive. And so going back to what we were talking about earlier, the academic piece was really important. It had to align with what I believed in. I really wanted to be in a city. At that, I'd kind of moved around a lot and been in smaller towns, so I knew I wanted to be like in an actual city. So Macalester's in St. Paul, which is the capital, and I grew up in Minneapolis, so 20 minutes away. And I wanted a chance to win and really have a chance to be competitive. And I felt like at Macalester we had all three. I know sometimes, people hear Minnesota, they hear the winters, that might scare people, but I grew up here, and it is what it is. You just throw on another layer, you throw on a hat, throw on gloves, you're good to go. And I was ready. I just felt like I was ready to be a head coach, and here we are, 2 years later. It's a little different, again, like you got to go back to 2004 where like Facebook wasn't really even big, and there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there were no YouTube highlights. Like it was a highlight tape was like literally a physical tape, so it was different. And for me, I knew I wanted to stay closer to home. So I think now, today in 2020, recruits are looking more national, but I just got in the car and drove to the schools, and the coach walked me around, and that was it. It's changed quite a bit now, 16 years later. And I would say, honestly, it's more competitive now. I mean, it's not just, you're not just recruiting Minnesota kids, you're not just recruiting Midwest kids, you're not just recruiting national. I mean, it's really become international. I guess with coaching, everyone's career is different. But for me, I guess I didn't have the luxury to choose where I wanted to go. If a job opened up and it more or less aligned with what I was looking for, then I took it. And again, I never thought I would live in Maine. I never thought I'd live in New Hampshire. I never thought I'd live in North Carolina or even New York. Like I'm a Midwest guy. I thought I'd be in Minnesota my whole life. And I'm thankful that I was able to move around and meet different people and live in different parts of the country and have some amazing experiences. But I also think it's pretty cool that I'm able to come back home now after those 10 years and share some of those experiences and some of those lessons I learned with now this next generation coming up. So I always tell our players, like, my playing career is over. I play like noon ball now, and if there's a men's league, I might play in the men's league, but the days of fans coming to the games and shit. Now, if we get 10 fans at a men's league game, that's like a big crowd. So now it's these guys' opportunity. And so if you're lucky, you get 4 years to play college basketball, if you're lucky. And then after that chapter closes and you move on and you really start your life. So I want these guys to have an amazing experience over these 4 years. So when they leave here, you hear the saying, well, college is the best 4 years of your life. I don't want that for my guys, because if that's a true statement, college is the best 4 years of your life, that means you've peaked at 21 and 22. And that means now you're going downhill the rest of your life. So rather than this being the best 4 years, I want this to be a launching pad for them. So this is the start of their journey, and now it goes from boys basketball to men's basketball in college. And then now they graduate at 21 or 22, and now it launches off their career. Now they're taking off, and when they look back in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s and their 60s, they can say Macalester was a great time of life. I don't want them to say it's their best, because if it's their best, again, that means that it's been downhill after that. So it's more of a launching pad for their life. And that's what I want for the guys here. And while you're playing, while you're wearing the jersey, people will notice. And as an athlete, it's not just enough. The last 3 words of our mission statement at Macalester are service to society. So how are we living that mission, right? We're not just here to play basketball. Like none of our guys say, hey, I'm coming to Macalester because I'm playing basketball. I want to go to a really good school, and I get a chance to play basketball, and I get a chance to serve in some way. So it starts with me, and it really starts with the president and the athletic director, and then obviously myself, but setting the tone for what does it mean to be an athlete at Macalester. And so our location, again, we're in St. Paul. So there are 300,000 people, roughly 300,000 in St. Paul, and about 460,000 in Minneapolis. So there are a lot of opportunities to serve. We have a civic engagement center on campus, and so I work with the head of that center to find opportunities for our players. Simple as things like going to read. There are some local schools where we'll go read. We recently had a drive. We called it Athletes Helping Families. So there's a big need right now with COVID and people out of work and families who are struggling. And so we're very fortunate. We're healthy. We're at an amazing school. We have families who care about us. Our lives aren't perfect, but no one's is. But we have it, all things considered, we have it pretty good. And so we partnered with Concordia St. Paul, which is a local Division II school, and then Rip City Basketball, which is a local AU program. And we just said, hey, we have to do something, right? One challenging thing now is a lot of our athletes on our team are not in Minnesota, they're away. But we brought together football players, tennis, soccer, golf, volleyball, and not just at our school, but all across the Twin Cities. And we ended up working with the Salvation Army. We got 4 trucks, and we filled all 4 trucks with toiletries, food, clothing. And then we also had some families who needed the items that they just showed up. So then we were able to load their cards up, and just, it really puts into perspective when we think we're having a bad day. There are a lot of people in the world who would love to have our bad day. it's all having perspective, and we have to realize as coaches and administrators that we're dealing with 18 to 21-year-old young men or young women, if you're coaching the women's side. So they just they haven't lived on the planet long enough. They're not going to have that perspective. And I think with time and with age and with more experience, you start to have that perspective. And so it's our job as coaches to be educators, not just on the court, obviously off the court, and to put our guys in positions where they can start to see that it's not like it's you got to get out of your own head. Use your own example. Like it's not about you, and it doesn't mean that you don't have pain. We all have pain in our lives, and we all have things that we have to handle, but you have to have perspective. And the more that we can give our players an opportunity to see that and to be a part of that and to realize like that they have a voice, they have, in my opinion, a duty to try to help their community. And especially when you are an athlete, with that comes, with that privilege comes opportunity, but responsibility. And young kids, like the whole thing, sometimes your professional athletes, they'll say, I'm not a role model. And I know what they mean by that, but you kind of are, even though maybe you don't want to be, right? It's like the Spider-Man thing, right? With great power comes great responsibility. And we have great power being athletes and coaches. So we have to use that for good. And we have to keep doing it, because as time goes on, it's easy to start thinking about the season and games and practice, but we have to be mindful of that time and try to create pockets to do good. So. It's really painful to see what happened. I grew up 2 miles. George Floyd was killed on 38th in Chicago. I grew up on 48th in Clinton. So Minneapolis is kind of on a grid. So you think 38th, you go 10 blocks south to 48th, and then I was 6 blocks west of Chicago. So it was very surreal, and it was hard you're watching these images. I mean, it became an international story. It wasn't just an American story. This was a worldwide story that happened. So you hear the saying, well, it hit home. I mean, it could not have hit any more home than with George Floyd. So, and then you throw in COVID, and obviously with the pandemic and people out of work and all that, and the social unrest, and then you see buildings burning and all that. I mean, it was just, it was really sad. There was a lot of anger. There was a lot of sadness. And you hope that in some ways his death wasn't in vain, and that some real change and real good can come from it. And I think the conversation that's going on now is really important, and it's just something that has to continue. And again, it's hard as time goes on and as life goes on. It's just natural. It's human tendency for things just to fade. So again, once people are here back on campus, we'll continue the conversation. We'll get involved. We'll be, I think, more intentional with which communities we try to help in, and trying to build better relationships with communities both in St. Paul and Minneapolis. And really, a lot of these movements and a lot of the trying to create change, it has to come from our young people, because they're sometimes old. I even said it honestly when we did that Athletes Helping Families Drive. In some ways, older people have failed younger people. So when you see these change and you see these movements and you see these protests, a lot of times they're driven by young people who are ambitious and are tired of seeing what's going on. And so, Carl, we have a lot of work, and if there was an easy answer, we'd already have it. It's not easy, but it's not supposed to be easy. It's going to be challenging and it's uncomfortable, but just the more we can talk about it, the more we can make people aware. I went to a talk recently, which was hosted by John Thomas, who works for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then a woman who is in radio for WCCO, which is a local station. And John is, he's a 6'8" black man, works for the Timberwolves, and he walks into the room, and you look at him, you say, wow, that's like a big black guy. And there's this image of, well, you already think of who he is before he even opens his mouth. And he used the example of, with a woman trying to do a man, what that what it's like to be a woman. We can't know, but we can at least listen and try to be empathetic. And just as if a black person or person of color is trying to explain to a white person about what's going on, it's not that you're supposed to know, but it's just, I think, having an open ear and saying, hey, I hear you, that goes such a long way. So I think as a society, if we can all try to just listen and hear what people are saying and listen to absorb and not listen to counterattack or listen to be aggressive, just say, hey, no, I'm going to actually hear what you're saying. That's a huge start. So what's interesting in Minneapolis and St. Paul, we have a large Hmong population, we have a large Somali population, a large Oromo population. So we have a lot of immigrant families that are moving here, and which is great. But it's hard enough in the U.S., let alone if maybe you don't speak the language or you're moving from a different country, you're trying to figure out, where do I go for a doctor, where do I go for education, and where do I live, and things like that. So there's a local school that has a lot of immigrant students. They have a lot of students who are either free or reduced lunch. And in that school, there are 5 teachers who are all Macalester grads. And so we feel like this is a great way. It's a pre-K through 5 school. So it's a great way to connect with them and to try to, you talk about investing in the youth and how you maybe don't see that return on investment, quote to speak, until years down the line when they do well in high school, when they do well in college, when there's less, better health and all this stuff. And so that's only a mile away from our campus. And so we're trying to figure out which schools can we partner with in the neighborhood that, to your point, are close, but maybe we haven't had a strong relationship with. And how do we do it in a way where it's meaningful and it's not just a one-time thing and we can continue to do it. So now you throw in COVID and the spacing, it's a little bit of a challenge, but we can get it done. So we're going to do something this fall, and hopefully that'll be an ongoing thing. And then, we have most colleges have a SAC, Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So a few of our players are involved with SAC, and so they work with other organizations, both in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and volunteer their time. So it's a big part, I think, of why students would choose Macalester, is because you do have all of these opportunities. We're not like in some small town and you got to get on a bus and drive 45 minutes. There are a lot of opportunities within a 5 to 15 minute drive. And so we just have to continue that work. You only have 4 years to wear the jersey, and while you're wearing that jersey, you have a big responsibility, not just to your current teammates, not just to your families, not just to those who wore the jersey before you, but also the ones who are going to wear the jersey after you, and leave it in a better place, right? There's a book, Legacy, and they talk about leaving the jersey in a better place. So it's your job while you're wearing it to push forward as far as you can. And when those 4 years are up, now that freshman comes in and it's his job to take it another 4 years. And so then when all of a sudden now you're an older alum and you come back, it's like, wow, this isn't even the same program. This is entirely different, but it's in a really good place. So that's our hope. So for anyone listening who might be interested in Macalester College, again, we're in St. Paul, Minnesota. We are 10 minutes from downtown St. Paul. We're 15 minutes from downtown Minneapolis. We are 10 to 15 minutes from the airport, depending on how fast you drive and if you hit all the green lights or not. So we're in this neat pocket. So we have 2,100 students in Macalester from all 50 states, from 98 countries last year. So students here are very bright, very passionate. They're very outspoken in what they believe in. And again, a big reason I chose Mac is because I did want to be a city, and I wanted to be surrounded by diverse students. And we have, alone on our team, we have one student from Dubai, we have one from Puerto Rico, we have a student manager who was born in Ethiopia. We only have one player on our team from Minnesota. We have other students from all over the country. And so it's just a unique way to meet some really bright students from all over the world. And again, like I said, the last three words of our mission statement are service to society. So for students who are really serious about academics, for students who love the game and really want to play, and then for students who want to get involved in communities, I think we're a great option. So